The main question I was asking myself when I sat down to watch M3GAN was, is this movie gonna try to do anything original, or is it just the Child's Play reboot all over again with a different coat of paint? And the answer is yes and no. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's basically the same movie. Kid gets paired with a robotic doll, the doll turns evil and starts killing people. Also, there's this, whatever it is. But while they don't get many points for originality, M3GAN is probably the film the Child's Play reboot was too stupid to be, and is also, dare I say it, a little bit more mature? I meant mature in the subject matter. Grow up. Yeah, so the comparisons to the Child's Play reboot from a few years ago are pretty much unavoidable here. I was hoping I wouldn't have to do that, but how can I not in this case? Aside from the kid and the doll being girls now, not that much is different. They reskinned it a little bit, but it's pretty much the same story. However, what redeems M3GAN slightly is that it seems to have learned from some of the mistakes of that movie, so it avoids falling into the same traps. It's a smaller movie, it's less ambitious, but that also means it's less cartoonish, which is definitely a good thing. It also tries to do a little more than just tell a scary story about a killer robot doll. I'm not saying it's brilliant or anything, but there's more going on here than I expected. For one thing, there's some pretty decent social commentary about the toy industry and how young kids today are essentially growing up glued to a computer screen or a phone or whatever, to the point where the machine is raising them more than the parents are, and how this can really screw kids up and cause all sorts of developmental issues. There's a scene in the movie where the kid who we're applying this to has to interact with other kids who are playing outside and stuff, and she just can't do it. She spends all her time interacting with a machine instead of real people, so she doesn't have the social skills, and it's causing her to have all these emotional problems. And holy shit, all you have to do is peruse social media for a few minutes to understand how true to life that is. And that actually goes somewhere too. That's part of the story. There's a really effective scene later on where they deal with this. So what on the surface appears to be just a silly story about a killer doll is actually trying to say something meaningful about character and dealing with grief and the importance of human interaction. And I think they just about got away with it too. And that would not have worked if the kid wasn't up for it. And kid actors are going to be a roll of the dice at the best of times. I can't even count the movies where there was a kid that ruined it, the kid was annoying, the kid couldn't act, whatever. In a movie like this, that was going to be the #1 red flag right there. But they sidestepped that pitfall because the kid is actually really good. And I don't mean she's just managing to do the typical kid stuff without being annoying about it. No, she has to do actual acting here. The character is fresh off losing both her parents in a car accident, so she's sad, depressed, angry, traumatized, and the little girl pulls it off. Some of the dialogue they give her is a bit clunky, but in a well-written scene, she holds her own with the adults. Hell, there's one scene, you'll know it when you see it, where she does something that even made me jump a little bit. And that's not even meant to be a scary scene, she's just having an emotional outburst. And I was like, oh my god, I can't believe that just happened. I was impressed. The kid is a really solid actor here. No complaints about her at all. And I guess I should say actors plural, because I believe the M3GAN robot is played by a real person. That one's surprisingly good too. They covered her with prosthetics, of course, but she conveys a good amount through body language. And there's especially subtle stuff they do with M3GAN's eyes. They project a lot of menace just by moving ever so slightly. That's a trick right out of the original Child's Play movie, which is a very good thing. I wouldn't say the doll ever becomes genuinely frightening like Chucky did back in the day, but it's pretty creepy for a PG-13 flick. And something else I appreciated? The characters aren't stupid. A lot of the time with movies like this, you have to make allowances for the characters, usually the adults, acting like idiots and not figuring out what's going on as fast as they should, because if they put 2 and 2 together too early, the story doesn't work. Well, I was pleasantly surprised at how M3GAN dodged that pitfall too. Here, the adult, which is the kid's aunt, is actually the first one to figure things out. The movie never lets you get frustrated with her being too dense. When bad things start happening, she begins to suspect very quickly that something might be wrong with the creepy robot she paired her niece up with. And they kind of inverted the Child's Play formula here, because now the kid is the one who's in denial about the doll being evil, which is really a more logical way to go in this case. And they don't make her look like an idiot about that either. That's the best part. The kid does have enough information to think that something might be wrong, but because you buy into the relationship between her and the doll, it actually makes sense that she wouldn't speak up or that she'd make excuses for the doll or something. See, this is an angle that Child's Play reboot just fumbled the ball on. You never really bought that Andy had a genuine attachment to the doll, but here, that's one of the most effective parts. The girl and M3GAN having this real connection is a major story point. They make you believe that she's very close with this thing. Hey bro, I totally just pooped. Up top. The kid lost her parents, and her aunt's parental instincts are kind of struggling to kick in, so the kid forms this unhealthy attachment to the doll as a coping mechanism because that's the only thing she's having any meaningful interaction with. It's messed up, but it all makes sense. So what we have is a pretty refreshing role reversal where the kid is acting like an emotional, screwed up kid with legitimate reasons for not figuring things out as quickly as she needs to, and the adult actually acting intelligently like an adult character should. Yeah, it takes her a minute to put the pieces together, but for the most part, she's being a reasoning, thinking person like you'd want the adult character to be in a situation like this. Which is why some of the mistakes she does make in the movie are so hard to swallow, because the aunt is the one who created the doll, and the doll turns evil so easily that the movie has to call her out on that at one point. Like, bitch, you put a bunch of programming and algorithms in this robot that you barely understood and didn't install any safeguards whatsoever in case something unforeseen happened and it became dangerous? How do you f that up? You really should be smarter than this! In more ways than one, BT dubs. Why the hell would you design a children's toy that can overpower grown-ass adults? Was M3GAN built by fucking Skynet? It doesn't even make sense either. Like, M3GAN is light enough for a 12-year-old kid to pick her up and carry her, but also strong enough to pin a grown woman to the floor? No, that's fucking stupid. You can't have it both ways. If she's that small, then she has to get the better of people by outsmarting them. You'd think that'd be pretty easy for a fucking robot. And then in the third act, things start going off the rails with M3GAN developing these new abilities because I guess the writers weren't sure how to end the story otherwise. It's like, how do we get her from A to B? She can control electronics. Dunsies. And that's not established well at all. It's just stuff she does once or twice because the plot says so, and then it just doesn't matter. Also, it's not entirely clear why and how M3GAN turns evil in the first place. There's no major inciting incident that triggers the change. One day, she just decides to start killing things. And they do try to make sense of that, but it felt too subtle, and the learning algorithm thing seemed like a weak excuse to me. I like that they tried to at least be smarter about it than the Child's Play reboot was.
Yep, here's your problem. Someone set this thing to evil.
But I needed more of an explanation than what we got. So M3GAN isn't perfect. I wouldn't say it's a great movie. It's got some pretty dumb things in it, but there is substance here. More than I expected in an inherently silly movie about a killer robot doll. The kid is a good actor. Characters act more or less intelligently, albeit with a few caveats. And there's a story in there about dealing with grief and what a human needs to be emotionally healthy versus what a robot needs that is actually pretty effective. So I was ready to write M3GAN off as a derivative reskin of the Child's Play reboot it was copied and pasted from, but while it does have a lot of the same ideas, it's smarter about how it approaches them. And I think it avoids enough of the problems that movie had and does enough things right on its own that it just barely has more in common with the first two original Child's Play films. You know, the good ones before the franchise got really stupid. So I think M3GAN is worth seeing. It's still derivative, and it never does become particularly scary, but turns out there's more good stuff here than I was expecting in a movie where this happens. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about M3GAN in the comments. And while you're here, please do all the other YouTube things. Ding the bell icon and follow my social media so you can always be notified when I upload new stuff. I also have a live streaming channel. Links to everything are in the description box. And most importantly, don't forget to hit that thumbs up, share the video around, subscribe, and make sure you're still subscribed, because what really deserves to have its ear ripped off and get thrown in front of a moving car by an insane killer robot doll is the YouTube algorithm. That's all for now, but I'll be back with more soon. So stay tuned, take care, I'll see you next time. Oh yeah, new year, new background. Let me know what you think.